On our quest to become self-reliant, we all have limited resources, and every choice we make comes at the opportunity cost of something else. Thus, we do research before we make decisions and what we want to do with our homestead. Today, I'm going to be talking about cows and the development of our self-reliant homesteads. My goal today is to give you enough information as you're looking at what you want to put on your homestead. Is a cow a good option? For those of you that decide that it is the option that you want to go with, I'm hoping to give you enough information that it can be a positive experience as you implement cows on your homestead. I grew up on a small acreage. We had about 7 acres, and every year my family would raise a couple of cows for our own personal consumption. And our acreage was around mid to small size farms where we had lots and lots of cows that were being raised for meat production. And as a child, I had a lot of jobs that would put me moving sprinkler pipe, and I would be working around cows. I worked around cows that were mama cows with calves. I even had times where I was working in a field with a bull, and many times when I was in there, the bull didn't even know I was there. I've had other experiences where the bulls have charged me. Through my childhood and growing up, I've had opportunity to dehorn cows. I've branded cows. I have castrated cows. I've done just about every imaginable thing you can think of with cows. When I was 15 years old, I got a job on a dairy farm, and I had a lot of responsibilities. One of my favorite responsibilities was taking care of the cows after they were taken away from the mothers. And I would bottle feed them, I would watch for sickness, and I would treat them. Later on in life, I actually got a job as a milker, where I milked on a dairy, where I would treat for mastitis, give other treatments. I would help pull calves when the cow was being born. Today, as we go through, I'm going to be telling you a little bit about what you need to do in preparations before you get cows. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, from my personal experience, what it's really like to be around a cow. I'm going to tell you, monetarily, what are the pros and cons? Is this financially worth it to get a cow for your homestead? And we'll talk a little bit about, once you get cows, how to be successful breeding cows. Some of the ins and the outs there. Prior to getting a cow, there are a couple of things that you're going to need to make sure you do. And I can't emphasize this enough. The very first thing that I'm going to suggest, spend some time, some quality time with some cows. And I'm not talking about baby cows. A full-sized cow. Full-grown cow can be 1,200, 1,600 pounds. You get face-to-face with a cow for the first time, and it can be a little intimidating. And then when you have to get that cow to do something it doesn't want to do, that's when fear can set in. A cow can smell fear. Once they know that you're afraid, you have lost control. So I emphasize again, make sure you spend some actual quality time with cows before you bring them to a homestead. Another thing that would be extremely important, prior to bringing a cow to your homestead, you need to make sure you have a fence. Make sure it's fenced in well enough that your cows are not going to get out. Every cow, when you put it in the field for the first time, is going to test fences. One particular time when I had a cow, and I brought it to a field, and this is a field where we had raised several. This cow got out, and this was a pasture that had had cows before, and I spent 3 days trying to catch that cow. New home, new fence, and he got out. So I'm going to emphasize, make sure before you bring a cow into a pasture for the first time that you have a fence established, and it's a good fence, and that it's going to keep the cow. In addition to having fences, it's important to make sure you've got enough land. You're going to probably want about an acre of land per cow. That way you can either pasture them or grow enough hay that you can, for the most part, take care of them. Now, if you don't have a full acre of land per cow, it doesn't mean that you can't get cows. It just means you're going to be supplementing their feed. Now, having a shelter for cows, such as a barn, it's not necessary. You can raise a cow without having shelter, but I can tell you there are a lot of reasons to have it. You got the cow to think about, the warmth of the cow, the safety of the cow, the protection of the cow. If the cow's gonna have a calf, it's nice to have there for that. In addition to that, think about milking. You really wanna go out in the middle of the winter and milk a cow when it's 40 below, when it's raining, because you're gonna be milking every day, twice a day, come rain or shine or snow. So, monetarily, the question is it worth it to buy a cow for your homestead? Is it worth taking the initial set of costs, the cost of purchasing the cow, the cost of the land, the fence, and then on top of that, $120 a month to feed a cow, to take care of it? And for me and my wife, the answer is yes, it is. Let's take a look at some numbers. Now, to buy a cow, her mom, I bought her mom for $1,000, and we've had a calf out of her. You've got the expensive land, fencing, but if you ignore all of the original upfront costs of getting cows, and you go just to the monthly costs, the maintenance, the variable costs, or the continuing costs that go with it, it's going to cost you about $3 a day to feed a cow. And yes, that is less than if you were on a dairy. When I worked in the dairies, they gave them extremely high production food because they wanted high production. They probably spent $6 a day per cow to feed the cows. I don't have to have the same kind of production. In a dairy, they're getting their cows to average 7, 8 gallons of milk a day. And that, a cow, once it has a calf, it's going to have milk for the next 10 months. In that time period, right after it has a calf, it's going to have its heaviest production, and during those days, you might get 10, 14 gallons of milk a day. But on average, over the duration of that 10 months, you're going to average about 7, 8 gallons of milk a day. Now, I won't get that, and it wouldn't matter what breed of cow I have. If I don't feed the high production food, I won't get it. But for me, as I run numbers, it's about $3 a day per cow that it costs me to feed the hay and the grain, and to do that. So, you ask yourself, is it worth it? And in addition to those costs, you're going to have the costs of veterinary expenses. Every cow has to be vaccinated. Legally, you have to vaccinate a cow. I have to give it the baying shot before she's 18 months of age, or I can't breed her. And I can't have milk if I don't breed her. If she doesn't have a baby, she's not going to produce a calf for me, and she's not going to produce milk. So you've got veterinary costs. And then I've got the cost, not just $3 to have a cow, but if I want to have babies, I need to have a boy cow also. So I've got to have 2 cows. Or if I choose to just have 1 cow, then I'm going to have to pay for artificial insemination. Either way, you start taking a look at expenses. I typically say budget about $20 a month in veterinarian care. If you take $3 a day in feed, $20 a month, you're looking at $100, $120 a month in feed. Is it worth it? I can buy a lot of milk, a lot of cheese, a lot of beef for $120 a month, and that's not including the setup costs. And for me and my wife, it is worth it to us. We absolutely believe that having a cow is one of the greatest animals for our homestead. Why? I can't put enough emphasis on raw milk. Raw milk is huge. Next, you go through, and yes, there is $120 a month. When she has a calf, I will be able to sell that calf, and depending on how old the calf is when I sell it, do I feed it through a winter, do I keep it? I'm going to get at least $500 profit off of the calf, if not $1,000. That's enough that if I pasture fed her all summer, I could almost feed her through the winter off of the money that her calf brings. Or I would be able to take, and I have beef that I'm able to put in the freezer, and I know what that beef has been fed. To me, that's valuable. In addition to these benefits, we go through trying times, hard times. We have supply chains cut down. I have, as part of our self-reliant food storage, cows. And to us, that's important. Now, for those of you that want to just run simple numbers and you want to just say, hey, you know what? I can buy a lot of milk for $120 a month. Getting a cow probably isn't in your best interest. Isn't what you want. It isn't for you. And then there's going to be some of you that say, I absolutely want to get a cow, and it is part of our plan. It is part of what we want, but you don't have the land, you don't have the resources, you don't have the time, and I understand that. To those of you that are in those situations, this is my plea: don't give up. Continue with your goals, and you'll make it. You'll get there, and you'll get to where you have your self-reliant homestead. And it's worth it. It's worth it. It's gratifying, self-fulfilling. There are several things that you need to take into consideration when you're breeding cows. A cow is going to have a calf once a year. The gestation period is 283 days, so in essence, your cow is going to be pregnant for 11 months. After she has the calf, if you do not get her bred again within 75 days, you won't have a calf that year, and you're waiting until next year. The cycle, they're going to go into heat every 18 to 24 days. So after they have the calf, and typically I let the first one pass just because your success rate of getting pregnant on the first heat cycle is not as good if you wait for the second or third. So you let them go into heat, then you let them go into heat the second time breed, and then you've got another chance to get them the third time. Really, it doesn't matter when you breed them again, but if you don't do it within 75 days, you won't be able to have a calf again the next year, or the calf will be born in the middle of the winter, and if you're not ready for that, that can be a disaster in and of itself. So it becomes imperative to be able to recognize heat. When a cow goes into heat, it can be difficult to catch and to understand that it's there. Cows, when they go into heat, they're going to be mounting each other. They're going to have mucus that'll come out of their valve, out of their vagina, and you'll be able to notice some difference that's there. And you need to be able to learn to identify, and I could go into a whole other segment about that, so I'm not going to put a lot of attention onto detecting heat right now, but it is something you'll want to learn and get to where you understand and you know and recognize within your cow, so that you don't miss the heat cycle when it comes into, or you're feeding a cow for a year without a calf. Now, when you're breeding cows, there are any number of problems that can actually occur. A cow can go through breech, you can have a cow born backwards, you can have a cow that struggles, and if they're not born correctly, you can lose a cow, and if you lose a cow, you still have milk for the rest of the year, but you just lost your calf, and that's money. Flip the calf, rotate the calf. Sometimes you'll actually have a vet or someone else will come out and help. Something you want to become familiar with and something you want to do more research on. Cows aren't the only option to have for milk. I love cows and I love cow milk, but you know that you can get a goat and you can get milk there. A Nubian goat's going to give you a gallon of milk, and the benefit of getting the goat over the cow is you have a much smaller animal, much easier to handle. There are some benefits to goats. To me, I have chose to go with miniature cows. It's still cow milk. They're smaller animals. I'm going to still be able to get 2 gallons of milk a day, which is more than what I'm going to get from a goat, and I get beef. I get beef to eat as a byproduct. So I've really grown to like Dexter cows, miniature Hereford cows, miniature Jerseys are fairly popular out there. Those are some of the ones that I would recommend taking a look at if you're looking at a small farm, a homestead for yourself. Bigger cows can be a little more intimidating and a little bit more difficult to handle also. A cow's a cow, and I encourage any cow that you can get. I have just grown to love the miniature cows. This is actually a calf that's replacing its mama. We owned the mama to her, and that's just one of the calves that's now coming up and it's going to be our milk cow. So she was actually born here on the farm. I've grown to really like the miniature cows. If you take a look at her size, now this cow right here, she's actually a year old. That's small for a cow, but she doesn't get anywhere but half the size of a regular cow. Extremely gentle, extremely easy to work with. And when it comes time to milking them, it gives me more than enough milk that I'll need. And so I've grown to really like the miniature cows. I think we're going to be friends. this size of cow is not intimidating at all.
Yeah, you guys are cute.